Okay, so good afternoon, guys and gals who may listen to this video after my presentation. My name is Trevor P. Castro. I'm President and CEO of Aphios Pharma, LLC, and we're developing cannabis-based drugs for cancer pain, opioid use disorder, anxiety, and multiple sclerosis. So these are drugs which will go through the FDA approval process. They do not fall into the category of recreational marijuana, do not fall into the category of medical marijuana, but are pharmaceutical-based drugs in the fashion of a recently developed drug by a company called Aphios Pharma of England called Epidiolex for epilepsy. And that company was sold recently to Jazz Pharmaceuticals for $7.2 billion. So that's our goal. So Aphios Pharma is dedicated to the discovery, delivery, development, and commercialization of cannabis and hemp-based drugs, because hemp in the United States is approved, for example, for use, and therefore can be facilitated for the same issues for central and peripheral nervous system disorders. So central means towards the brain, CNS, and peripheral means anywhere else in the body to do with the immune system and the surface of the body. So initial product targets include cancer pain, cancer-induced peripheral neuropathic pain, opioid use disorder, anxiety, and multiple sclerosis. Now, we as humans, Keith, Richard, Arnold, and the rest of us all have inherent endocannabinoid systems, that is internal cannabinoid systems. And these systems are stimulated by an enzyme called a fatty acid hydrolase enzyme. And this is a natural enzyme that was discovered by in the late 1990s by a scientist in Israel. And these have been with us for a long time, and any imbalances in our internal endocannabinoid system can create imbalances in our health, either our central health, nervous health, or our peripheral health, on our abilities to respond to negative health intrusions. Though cannabis and hemp has cannabinoids in them, they consist of over 60 to 100 bioactive compounds, including delta-9 THC and cannabinoid oil, CBD. Hemp primarily contains CBD. These can help because if we introduce them into our body, they can help balance our endocannabinoid system. However, they have complicated interactions with our peripheral and central nervous systems, but they can help. So millions of us suffer from pain and anxiety. In the United States, about a third of the population suffer from pain. That's about 100 million people. About 50% of cancer patients experience pain, there's no treatment. There's no treatment available for this pain. Pain can come from other diseases, such as multiple sclerosis, age, injuries. Of course, the standard of care of treatment for pain are opioids. They can be effective and sometimes not so effective, but it's a massive problem. They can lead to addiction. So we can utilize cannabis instead of opioids. You can significantly relieve the problem of pain and solve some of the problems of opioid addiction. So how do we administer cannabis? Well, typically people smoke it. So when it's smoke or inhale, the cannabinoids are rapidly absorbed. They go directly to the brain, and that's difficult to dose. And it's very acute, it's very short-lived. If you take it orally, if you eat it, for example, or ingest it, cannabinoids are very oily, very much like olive oil. They go right through the body and they're degraded very quickly. So they're difficult to administer orally because they're both hydrophobic or like water and more like oil. And they have poor what is called bioavailability. It's only about 6%. So every 100 grams you put into your body, 100 milligrams, only 6 milligrams will be useful. So the results of about 90% loss in the body. So we believe they can help, but we have to keep them in the body longer and protect them from degradation. We can do so by encapsulating cannabinoids in nanoparticles. I say degradation because nature's designed all these molecules to be degraded with time and oxygen, as will be covered in biomass. So if you take marijuana or pot and you leave it in the atmosphere with oxygen, it will degrade and become less effective. Similarly, when you isolate active ingredients in exposure to oxygen, they will be degraded and reduce their capacity. So what we do is, in order to protect them, we put them into nanoparticles. We put them into polymer nanoparticles. Now, cannabis, cancer, pain, and opioid addictions only treated with synthetic drugs, which can have synthetic side effects. So we're going to try to replace those. So our solution is sustained release nanoparticles. We keep specific bioactive cannabinoids in the body longer. And I say specific because marijuana or cannabis has over 100 cannabinoids. So if you try to put all of those into the body at the same time, they're going to have a lot of different interactions. So we like to isolate a specific cannabinoid that has a specific impact on a specific disease and keep it in the body longer. By nanoencapsulation, we'll improve the stability from oxygen degradation, as well as protect them from enzymes in the digestive tract and from stomach acids. It also prevents first-pass metabolism by liver enzymes. And by utilizing pegylation, we can keep them in the body longer. So then as the polymer shell breaks down, it releases the cannabinoid slowly and increases the bioavailability, and therefore it can reduce dosing, improves compliance and efficacy. Now you can take one pill every 12 hours. That can last 12 hours. And so you only have to take 2 pills a day. And you can have a chronic impact rather than an acute impact. Most of the diseases that we are treating tend to be chronic. Pain, for example, is not an acute treat, is a chronic, so you need to treat it chronically. Opioid use disorder, if somebody is seeking opioid, they are going to seek it in a chronic fashion. So you need chronic treatments. So our goal is to transition acute impact drugs into sustained release drugs for chronic implications. So what is the market opportunity? So the market opportunity is in pain, for example. Now the larger pain market is probably about $200 billion. We're looking at a subset of the pain market, which is about $9.9 billion. And it's the specific target that we're looking at is about 50% of that, about $4.5 billion. That's growing at an compounded annual growth rate of about 5.6%. So that's our target's accessible market. For opioid use disorder, in the United States, there have been 500,000 deaths in 2 decades. And now most of the opioid use treatments are themselves opioids, for example, methadone. So that's a non-starter. Why would you treat an opioid addiction with an opioid? So what we're doing is treating with CBD, for example, because it attaches to the mu and delta opioid receptors in the same way that opioid does. So you can basically substitute the satisfaction of a receptor with a cannabinoid. And now remember, our body for thousands of years have had natural endocannabinoids. And that marketplace is also about 4.9 billion and addressable about 2.5 billion with an 8.7 compounded annual growth rate. Anxiety. Now, both anxiety and pain are evolutionary tools that we developed as human beings to protect us. If we touch a hot plate, for example, we feel pain. So it tells us not to touch a hot plate again. If we're looking at a situation where we can be harmed, we get anxious about it. Now, the extremes of anxiety called generalized anxiety order, PTSD, for example, post-traumatic disorder. And this affects about 13% of the US population, which is significant, about 50 million people. And that leads to lower productivity, higher drug and alcohol use. It's a very large market with a lot of indications, a lot of drugs in the marketplace. It's about 20 billion market by 2028. We believe we can access about 10% of that market, about $2 billion by 2028. And the fourth area, which is sort of our low-hanging fruit, is multiple sclerosis. It affects about 400,000 people in the US and 500,000 in the European Union. Nobody knows why it occurs. It starts occurring as people age. It's a genetic disorder. It's could be environmental also. But definitely, it's caused by neuroinflammation and neurodegeneration. And spasticity or trembling, for example, inability to walk, all those things occurs with multiple sclerosis. Marketplace is huge, about 42 billion by 2028. But we believe our addressable marketplace is quite small, about $1 billion by 2028. Now, why this market? GW Pharma that I mentioned in the opening slide, one of their compounds is called Sativex. It's a mixture of delta-9 THC, the psychotropic compound of marijuana, and CBD 50-50. And they have it approved in about 32 countries around the world for multiple sclerosis. But their materials are dissolved in an alcoholic solution, which is sprayed into the mucosa membrane. So again, it's an acute treatment for multiple sclerosis, not a chronic. So that's why we're going to compete with them as a chronic agent. Speaking about competition, our primary competition is Jazz Pharmaceuticals in Menlo Park, California. They recently acquired GW Pharma, the English company, for $7.2 billion. And the reason they acquired GW Pharma is GW Pharma got the first cannabis drug from nature approved for a very narrow indication of epilepsy in children. And that drug is called Epidiolex. And GW Pharma was purchased for $7.2 billion. Now, we differ from GW Pharma because we use proprietary and patented nanotechnology platforms to improve the delivery and efficacy of cannabinoids through oral and topical administration. As a side, we signed a mutual non-disclosure agreement with GW Pharma last March. They were evaluating our nano encapsulation technology while they were looking for soliciting a partner to purchase them because they were interested in how our technology can help them sustain the release of their compounds. So there's still a potential acquirer of Aphios Pharma, but we'll have to push that through clinical trials. So there's a secondary level of competition with companies like AbbVie, which are large pharmaceutical companies who have synthetic cannabis drugs such as Marinol and Dronabinol. And these are AbbVie and Par Pharmaceuticals, and these are utilized mainly for cancer-induced nausea and vomiting, or CNIV. And there's a tertiary level of competition with companies such as Merck, Biogen, Sanofi, and Pfizer, who have targets for similar drugs utilizing a non-cannabis-based drugs, and they are also potential acquirers of Aphios Pharma LLC. So what have we done so far? What's our traction? This is our research and collaboration that we have done. In the picture to the right, this is a picture of our superfluids, carbon dioxide extraction and chromatographic purification pilot plant, which we have designed, patented, built, and operate. Okay, and we did that through development of a delta-9 THC natural cannabinoid product with the National Cancer Institute, and then national encapsulation of delta-9 THC for marijuana addiction, which is a significant problem for people who smoke marijuana, through the National Institute on Drug Abuse, National Institutes of Health. We also developed a CGMP, continuous good manufacturing practice process inconsistent with FDA requirements for CBD from cannabis sativa with National Institute on Drug Abuse of NIH. We have had collaborations with Aphios Pharma, which is a multinational billion-dollar company, to nano-encapsulate delta-9 THC in biodegradable polymer nanospheres and possibly with nanosomes. Collaboration with Alexa Pharmaceuticals, which became a billion-dollar company to manufacture delta-9 THCA, which is the carboxylic acid of delta-9 THC, and is the compound that's actually in the natural plant. And then recently, we collaborated with Aphios Pharma to manufacture transdermal patches of delta-9 THC. In terms of manufacturing and agreements, so we've developed proprietary technologies for manufacturing and nano-encapsulation of pharmaceutical-grade cannabinoids. We've established supercritical fluid manufacturing for 1,000 kilogram per year of cannabinoids under CGMP. We have a fully scheduled 1 BSL-2 lab. Schedule 1 is a drug enforcement agency requirement for companies to work on a federal level in the United States, not on the state level. We have an inventory of about 1.8 kilograms of cannabinoids. We have 16 patents on drug discovery, manufacturing, and nanotechnology delivery, and 4 pending. And we've had mutual non-disclosure agreements with GW Pharma, Erie Management Group, Fujitomo Pharmaceuticals in Japan, who is evaluating our technology currently, and of course, Rhodes Pharma that I mentioned before. So these are some of the intellectual property patents by method: 2 in drug discovery, 3 in drug manufacturing, including 1 in crystallization, in drug delivery, many with biodegradable polymer nanospheres, and a few in phosphoryl nanosomes. And these are primarily US patents. We are prosecuting new patents internationally through the PCT program. So a management team consists of myself. I have over 30 years of diversified business and experience in the biotechnology industry. I also have about 10 years of experience in the oil and gas and energy industries. My director of clinical and regulatory affairs is Dr. Judith L. Palmer-Castro, who I'm sleeping with my wife. She is a behavioral scientist and have over 20 years of regulatory and clinical experience in industry and academia, including Harvard Medical School Children's Hospital. Dr. Val Levada is our business advisor. He is a retired senior lecturer of the Sloan School of Management at MIT in Cambridge, Mass. We live pretty close to MIT. And Catherine Prillo, our controller, has over 30 years of accounting, financial analysis, and strategic planning experience in the retail industry. Our team of scientific advisors includes Dr. Arthur D. Lander. He's an MD, PhD neuroscientist. I first met Arthur when he was at MIT. He's now at the University of Irvine in California in Irvine, and he's the chair of the Development and Cell Biology Department. Dr. Glenn Hong, who I've worked with for over 3 decades, is a chemical engineer, MIT grad and supercritical fluid expert. Dr. Gordon Craig, who I've worked with for over 3 decades also. He's originally from South Africa. He's ex-Oxford PhD, natural product chemist, and chief of the natural product branch of National Cancer Institute. And Dr. Jonathan Stephen Alexander, a biologist and professor of molecular and cellular biology, medicine and neurology, and multiple sclerosis at Louisiana State University. So we have a bunch of key opinion leaders that match up, apart from the match between our scientific team and our targets. Stacy Gruber is Associate Professor of Psychiatry, and I'm glad to see Stacy was in a recent NOVA presentation. And Stacy says, I'm enthusiastic with Aphios Pharma plans to manufacture and deliver cannabinoids for clinical research studies, which follow CGMP. Aphios has proven track record. And this latest endeavor represents an important milestone for patients exploring cannabinoid-based therapies. Aphios is clearly invested in facilitating research and clinical endeavors which are likely to advance the science of cannabinoid-based medicines. And with the launch of this program, Aphios stands uniquely poised to make highly significant contributions to science and medicine. Now, Stacy is Associate Professor of Psychiatry at Harvard Medical School at McLean Hospital. And Stacy actually works in the area of anxiety and cannabinoids. So she is very well positioned to advise us. Dr. Todd Bendera is our key opinion leader in the areas of pain. And he's gone through our applications to the NCI for developing CBD for chemotherapy-induced neuropathic pain, to improve the pharmacokinetics of CBD using our patented nanoformulation technology, to improve the pharmacodynamics or the efficacy of CBD in a model of CIPN-induced pain. Todd says there's a great need for novel medication CIPN in order to reduce the underutilization of these effective chemotherapies. Often patients who have pain stop taking their medicine, and therefore the chemotherapies become dose limiting and result in the incomplete destruction of the cancer. So he was excited and intrigued by what we have to do with our nanoformulation technique. Our third opinion leader deals with opioid use disorder. Dr. Brent Boyer is a chief medical officer and founder of several drug and alcohol treatment centers in the southwest of the United States. And he was appointed by the Alabama governor to serve as the governor's task force on opioid addiction and abuse. And he will provide his team and his advice to progress our molecule in the clinic with him through clinical trials. So is an essential component of our team. And then Dr. Jerry King, retired professor of and supercritical fluid technology expert and author. I've worked with Jerry for a number of decades. And Jerry says, Trevor Castor has pioneered the application of supercritical fluid technologies to drug delivery systems, the extraction of bioactive natural and marine products, nanoparticulate synthesis, and more recently in the field of cannabis science and technologies. Aphios has a successful record of developing extraction and formulation technologies as applied to drugs such as Taxol, a very potent anti-cancer drug, THC, several bioactive marine products, which will now be focused for this new company on cannabidiol on a nanoscale to achieve solubilization and facilitate sustained release of CBD. So our strategy is a threefold strategy: to isolate and manufacture specific cannabinoids using our patented environmentally friendly supercritical carbon dioxide extraction chromatographic purification techniques. I use the word environmentally friendly because we minimize the use of toxic organic solvents. Then to nano-encapsulate these drugs in biodegradable polymer nanospheres. And when they biodegrade in the body, they leave no toxic residues. They degrade to things like lactic acid and lactic acid, which are typically in our body. Again, utilizing patented supercritical fluid technologies to improve oral bioavailability. And the third step, we manufacture, we nano-encapsulate, and we have to conduct rigorous phase 2 clinical trials. Now, we can avoid, typically in clinical trial development, you go to phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. We can avoid going to phase 1 because the active pharmaceutical ingredient has been approved by the FDA for another indication. So we can jump right into phase 2 to demonstrate efficacy and establish the doses which will make it efficacious. So that's called a 505(b)(2) pathway. And from there, we can go into a phase 3 pivotal clinical trial and obtain FDA approval for distribution of the drug. Our strategy, however, is to exit potentially before we get to phase 3. So in terms of our funding history, our ask and our exit, we've spent about $46 million today to develop enabling technology platforms and knowledge used in the manufacturing and encapsulation of cannabinoids. We received about $7.9 million in very competitive peer-reviewed grants from the National Cancer Institute, National Institute on Drug Abuse, and National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health of the National Institutes of Health. So we're doing crowdfunding currently to raise up to $1 million to continue development studies and to fundraise to raise up to $30 million for CGMP manufacturing, to conduct IND enabling studies, to file an IND with the FDA, and IND is an investigational new drug application, and to conduct phase 2 clinical trials. So that will take us about 3 years to do that. And in the prior slide will be the second to last row. On our exit, so we believe investors will be able to exit in 3 years in a merger and acquisition in 2025. Alternatively, we plan to do an IPO to raise $100 million in 2026 to complete clinical trials for phase 3 and to file an IND with the FDA, NDA with the FDA. NDA is a new drug application. So our exit strategy consists of one or more options. One, to establish a strategic corporate partnership or merger and acquisition with a multinational pharmaceutical company, such as Aphios Pharma, our competitor, Merck, Biogen, AbbVie, or Pfizer, to develop and commercialize nanocannabinoids on a worldwide basis. Secondly, we can seek to out-license nanotechnology, nanocannabinoids as early as possible in the development cycle on a regional basis. For example, with Fujimoto in Japan, or several companies which we are in discussions with in China. So the third option is to raise $100 million in an initial public offering, which everyone has heard of, IPOs, to continue clinical development and commercialization of nanocannabinoids for CIPNP, chemotherapy-induced peripheral neuropathic pain, anxiety, opioid disorder, and/or multiple sclerosis. That's in case option 1 or 2 does not provide us with sufficient return on our investment. So investors in the A round, this is our A round of investments, can exit on execution of an M&A in option 1 or an IPO in option 3. To be a little bit more granular, these are our multiple opportunities to exist. So Aphios Pharma was founded in 2018. It has exclusive license of 16 patents of 4 pending, access to fully developed manufacturing and research laboratories and CGMP facilities with a Drug Enforcement Agency Schedule 1 license. We're going to start in 2021 to 2023. We're going to conduct phase 2 clinical trials to establish commercial partners. We'll start looking. Phase 2B is when we're going to get a first readout of efficacy. And we will start looking for partners to exit at that time. And this will be, exit will be based on a milestone-based worldwide license with upfront payments of $45 million. Now this is historical. And then license agreements for royalties and milestone payments. In 2025, we'll also look for pre-commercial exit opportunity with a large partner, such as Sanofi, Jazz, Fujimoto. And the mathematics that we're looking for, the returns that we're looking for is $200 million upfront, with about $1 billion in what is called biodollars. And biodollars are dollars associated with milestone payments and royalties. If both of those do not happen, the alternate strategy is in 2026 to do an IPO on the NASDAQ and raise $100 million to conduct the phase 3 clinical trials. In that case, we'll sell about 10 to 20% of the company to the public. So if we sell 10% of the company to the public, we're looking at about $1 billion market cap. So that's what we're looking at in all of these cases to go from where we are in 2021, 2022 to 2025, 26 to increase the valuation by a factor of about 10. And of course, as a phase 3 exit, if we have to go to the phase 3, we'll definitely get a licensing partner or commercial partner for distribution and marketing, like Jazz Pharmaceutical, where they did exit for 7.2 billion. So the valuation increases further if we get to a 2017 exit. So that's my story. It's a massive problem and a massive opportunity because we all have natural endocannabinoid systems. Cannabis has been around for thousands of years, and mankind has always tried to utilize cannabis to help them satisfy or rebalance your cannabinoid system. We plan to do it more effectively and selectively, and to demonstrate that by clinical trials. We have a vastly experienced team and key support. We have proprietary patented nanotechnologies and benefiting from decades of development, and there's multiple exit opportunities. I thank you for the interest, and I'd like you to join us on our journey to develop improved cannabinoids for improving healthcare in significantly highly unmet medical needs of cancer pain and pain in general, opioid use and substance use disorder, anxiety, of which you have 4 large components, and multiple sclerosis. Thank you again. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.